Okay. I am recording this a little bit later than usual, so my children are already asleep. Um, they are, they've had a busy day, and so they are already taking a rest, which I'm thankful for. I'm enjoying the peace. So, we are going to continue today about our words. In the past couple of weeks, we've talked about putting salt in our words, how we should think before we speak, and we're going to continue along those lines about talking about criticism. And if we are all completely honest, none of us like criticism. It is hard to hear, and it's definitely hard to take. And we have heard this all of our lives. I've heard it a lot in school. Constructive criticism. To me, criticism is criticism. Now, there's good criticism, bad criticism. I when they say constructive criticism, it's supposed to help you kind of point out your faults and say, okay, you need to work on this area, do this, you're a little bit better at this, do that. But when it boils down to, criticism is criticism. And I also think that is very important when we have criticism with something or somebody or how something is going, how we approach the criticism. That makes the world of difference. And that's what we're going to talk about today. As a Christian, how do we handle criticism? And criticism has been around since the beginning of time. And when you think of criticism, who is one of the people in the Bible that had probably more criticism than anybody else in the world? Hopefully you all think of Moses. Could you imagine all the griping, the grumbling, the criticism he heard the 40 years wandering in the wilderness? We're going to look at an example of it. We're going to start in Exodus 15. But if you want a complete picture of all the complaining and grumbling that I'm going to mention in a few minutes, it continues on in the following chapters. But we're going to touch on Exodus 15, verses 23 to 24. And those verses say, "Then Moses made Israel set out from the Red Sea, and they went into the wilderness of Shur. They went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. When they came to Marah, they could not drink the water of Marah because it was bitter. Therefore it was named Marah. And the people grumbled against Moses, saying, 'What shall we drink?'" Now, think about this. They have just crossed the Red Sea. They just witnessed the miracle of the waters being parted, them going through it, and Pharaoh being swallowed. They looked back and they saw Pharaoh and his chariots and his men all being swallowed up. They just got through walking through this Red Sea. They saw what God did. And it wasn't but a short time later, they're grumbling again. They're grumbling. They've already forgotten about what God just brought them through, what God has done, and they're grumbling. And what are they grumbling? Oh, the water's too bitter. We don't like it. It's not good enough. Not that it's water, not that it's quenching our thirst, not that it's what we need. It's bitter. And this was just the beginning. They complained about the water. Then they complained about the food. If you think about that, they got tired of the manna and the quail. Then they complained about running out of water. Then they complained that Moses took too long when he went up on the mountain. Again, they were tired of eating the quail and manna. They wanted something different, and it went on and on and on. That never ended. It was the never-ending cycle. And, he fixed the water situation. He prayed to God. God fixed it, gave them water. Then they started grumbling about the food. So God fixed it and gave them what they wanted. And then they ran out of water, so they're grumbling. It's just a cycle. Do we know people like that? Are we like that? We ask God to provide, to help us with something, and when he does, we complain because it's not exactly how we want it or exactly how we would have done it. Maybe complain is not a good word there. What about criticize? Well, I would have done that different. God, I asked for your help, but what I really wanted you to do is do it this way, at this time, for this person. That's what I really needed. Would you criticize? We have to be careful that we don't do that, and it's very easy to do. We just have to be careful. And all this, Moses took this criticism very well. He's human. Did he get angry? Yes. We know he broke the tablets. Did it get on his nerves? Absolutely. Did he get worn out? Yes, but he never gave up. He stuck with it. He dealt with all the criticism. So if he could deal with all that criticism, and we're having a bad day, and we just feel like everybody's criticizing everything we do, from the way we got dressed, to the car we drive, to the house we live in, to how we're raising our kids, to whatever it is. Think about Moses and all he endured. And he had nowhere to escape. He was in this wilderness for 40 years, listening to the grumbling and complaining and the criticism day in and day out. But he stuck with it. So as Christians, we need to stick with it, but we need to think about our criticism. And that's what we're going to talk about next. We're going to jump to Matthew 18, verses 15 through 17. Now, these verses, they don't talk about criticism, but it talks about solving a problem. But I'm going to apply it to criticism, and I'm going to show you how. So we're going to read Matthew 18, 15 through 17. It says, "If your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault, between you and him alone. If he listens to you, you have gained your brother. But if he does not listen, take one or two others along with you, that every charge may be established by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. If he refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. And if he refuses to listen to the church, let him be to you as a Gentile and a tax collector." Okay, so we all know, we've all heard this, try to solve it, try to go one-on-one. If you can't, go get 2 or 3 people to go with you. If they can't solve it, then you take it to the church. But I want to apply it to criticism, okay? Yes, this is talking about sinning against one another, but I want to talk about criticism. If we have a fault with someone, what do these verses tell us to do? Does it tell us to go and tell everyone and run our mouth and make a big deal about it? No. It says go to that person directly and talk to them. Okay, I have a criticism. You can call it constructive criticism. You can just call it being ugly. It's just criticism. I have a criticism against Elizabeth. And I'm throwing her out there as the first name I can think of. What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to go and tell everybody at the church my criticism with Elizabeth? Am I supposed to go and tell all of my friends? Am I supposed to go and tell everybody and avoid Elizabeth? No. I am supposed to go to Elizabeth and talk to her one-on-one. Am I supposed to go jump down her throat and tell her all the things she's done wrong? No. What does it say do? Go and tell him his fault. Just you and him. I'm supposed to go to Elizabeth and tell her her fault in a loving way. Then hopefully she will listen and will change. But how many of us actually do this process today? How many of us can honestly say, when we have a criticism against somebody, towards somebody, when we have a fault with somebody, that we will actually go to them to their face, one-on-one, and talk to them? How many of us choose to do that and we just air the complaint for all to hear? We know what the right thing to do is. We always say, put the shoe on the other foot. Treat someone as you would want to be treated. You don't want people talking bad about you. Everybody says they want someone to come to them if they have a criticism, if they have a fault, if they have a problem. Shouldn't we do that to the other person? Shouldn't we have the same courtesy to the other person? And so, like I said at the beginning, criticism is hard to hear. And most of the time, we don't take it well, do we? We don't take it well at all. But how do we respond? Do we do it in a Christian loving way? If I am going to Elizabeth, do I go up and approach her in an ugly way and say, oh, this is what you did wrong, you need to fix it? Or do I go to her and say, hey, Elizabeth, I noticed you this, or you really hurt my feelings, or, I have a problem with this. Can we sit down and talk about it? And think about it. Well, how much farther am I going to get with Elizabeth if I sit down and say it in a loving way versus just coming at her and saying all the things she did wrong? She's going to shut me off right then and there. And as Christians, we have to watch our criticisms. We have to watch what we say about people, how we say it. We have to, if it is a legit criticism, not just, oh, she hurt my feelings today. Not, oh, I just didn't like the dress she was wearing today, so I'm just going to go talk about her. When we have a legit criticism, how do we respond? And do we do it in a loving Christian way like God tells us to do? And that's where we're going to talk about. I didn't get too deep in it because I think everybody knows what I'm trying to say. Everybody knows about criticism. I just want us to think about, and it's hard. When you're sitting there being criticized, you just feel like everything's coming at you, that they're throwing everything at you, that you're just doing everything wrong. It's hard not to lash out and get mad at them and want revenge. But as a Christian, we are supposed to go to that person one-on-one, not make a scene. We are supposed to handle it in certain ways. And are we handling it that way? I'm going to end with a few verses about friends, and we're going to be in Proverbs. There's 2 verses. It's Proverbs 27:6. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. Profuse are the kisses of an enemy. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. If they are a true friend, they are going to tell you the truth. It may hurt your feelings, but they're going to do it in a kind, loving, Christian way. Why? Because they care about you. Are we doing that? The next one is Proverbs 27 verses 9. Oil and perfume make the heart glad, and the sweetness of a friend comes from his earnest counsel. Sweetness of a friend comes from his earnest counsel. Think about that. The sweetness of a friend. Galatians 6:1-5. Again, we all know these verses, but I'm going to read it again. Brothers, if anyone is caught in any transgression, you who are spiritual should restore him in a spirit of gentleness. Keep watch on yourself, lest you too be tempted. Bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. For if anyone thinks he is something when he is nothing, he deceives himself. But let each one test his own work, and then his reason to boast will be in himself alone, and not in his neighbor. For each will have to bear his own load. So, what it says here, it says brothers, but I'm going to say sisters, because this is a ladies' devotional. Sisters, if anyone is caught in any transgression, you who are spiritual, you who are Christians, us, listen to this, should restore him in a spirit of gentleness. But you got to watch ourselves so they don't drag you down to them. It takes a strong Christian to do that. Bear one another's burdens. We are called to do that as Christians. Not criticize them for what they said or what they did or what they didn't do. Be there and restore them in gentleness. Okay? A Christian will speak the truth in love. They will speak the truth in love. They will make us aware of the problem and then give us a chance to fix it. So there's a 3-step process. We're going to tell you what you did wrong or tell you our criticism. We're going to make you aware of it and show you why it was a problem and then give us a chance to fix it. If we are a Christian, we will do that. We will give them the chance to fix it. We will take the 3-step process. We just won't criticize and walk away and blab our mouths to everybody. Are we that type of Christian? And that's what I want us to think about this week. We have all criticized somebody. We have all been criticized. How did we take it? When we respond, are we being a Christian in the way we respond to criticism? And that's what I want us to think about this week. Think about telling people things in a loving Christian way. And that's what I want us to work on. So I hope everybody has a great week, and I will see you all here next week.